A car like this weighs 2,000 kilos, so in order to work on it, we have to be very careful since the cost to move it has increased, so we're very careful when using this tool.
The energy crisis is still looming large over European economies, businesses, and consumers. We're here in Rome to see firsthand how some of the measures put in place at EU level help ease some of the burden. The streets of the Eternal City might be as bustling as ever, but they cannot hide the fact that the rising cost of living is affecting Italians from all walks of life.
The cost of living has increased, especially as far as food is concerned. The bills, especially the electricity, skyrocketed. It's very, very difficult to take care of a family.
Europe's high energy prices have fueled an 8.5% annual inflation rate in the euro area. In Italy, the cost of living increased even more, by 10.9%. These punishing price hikes are not only hurting consumers, they also impact energy-hungry companies, like this mozzarella-making factory on the outskirts of Rome.
We have 250 employees in our two plants. We produce 20 million kilos of cheese in the different formats and specialities.
The CEO of this company tells me that his energy bills in 2022 were 3 times higher than the previous year. While investments in biogas and solar panels managed to partly reduce these costs, they still weigh heavily on companies like his.
In actual number means 1.3, 1.4 million euro extra cost that was unpredictable. As a result, the cost of our products has been impacted significantly.
To support the EU's economy after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the European Commission adopted the State Aid Temporary Crisis Framework in March 2022. It allows member states to grant limited amounts of aid to companies affected by the war or the sanctions, offer liquidity support for businesses, compensate the high energy prices experienced by companies. In Italy, more than 50 billion euros worth of state aid have been approved by Brussels, including tax credits.
Given the energy bill, every company could calculate 30% of this amount and use this 30% as credit to compensate in the following months with the tax to be paid to the government. This mechanism, unfortunately, didn't work that well on the short-term cash flow.
This feeling is shared by Mauro Savoia, the manager of a family-owned automobile repair shop in Rome. After seeing his energy bills double in 1 year, he also benefited from a tax credit, but says more should be done to help small businesses.
There was no financial relief of any kind. We expected at least some economic aid or grants to help companies at the end of the year.
Flexibility on state aid rules is just one of the EU's answers to the energy crisis. What else has been done? Watch our quick crash course.
3 themes have dominated the European response to the energy crisis: reducing overall energy demand, helping reduce costs for consumers, and making plans to avoid relying on Russian gas. The first goal has been given an unexpected boost by the relatively mild winter this year. That means demand isn't as strong as it could have been in a cold year. Price caps, windfall taxes and handouts have helped with the second goal of reducing costs for consumers. On the third issue, we've seen a rapid growth in plans for new LNG shipping terminals and gas pipelines, initiatives to accelerate renewable energy projects, and efforts to increase energy efficiency. The last part is important because the EU still needs to meet its long-term commitment to be carbon neutral by 2050.
The war in Ukraine has highlighted the need of rethinking energy supplies, energy consumption, and energy output. For more about these important issues, I turn to energy expert at the Bruegel think tank in Brussels, Simone Tagliapietra.
Over the last months, energy prices have been decreasing sharply across Europe, so families will, in the coming weeks and months, see lower energy bills. But those energy bills will still be 2 times, 3 times higher than what we used to see in the past.
Europe put in place the temporary crisis framework to try to deal with this energy crisis. Do you think that it's enough, or will it lead, as some people suggest, to market distortion?
During times of crisis, one of the typical responses of Europe is to lose a bit these state aid rules. What is the problem? The problem is that when you lose and when you water down the competition policies in Europe, the state aid rules, for example, typically the ones benefiting the most are the two biggest countries, Germany and France, which are the ones, namely Germany, that have the fiscal space, so-called, so have the money to spend to subsidize their companies more than others. So during 2022, we end up in a situation where 80% of the state aid was allocated by Germany and France only.
We just came back from Italy, where we spoke to two different companies who benefited from tax credits under these state aid rules, but both were saying that it's not enough to help them. So how can we make sure that these companies actually get the help that they need?
There was a mix of interventions. So the tax credit was one, but then there was the reduction in the VAT as well. So, of course, companies have seen their energy bills increasing by a factor of 3 or even 4 at a certain point in time, but we need to consider that without the intervention of the government, the energy bills would have increased much more than that.
One thing we saw during this crisis is that the electricity market is very vulnerable to price shocks, and now the EU has launched a consultation in order to try to reform this electricity market. What is your take on that?
We should not think that this will be the solution to our energy crisis problems. Our energy crisis problem has been, one, a mismatch in demand and supply for natural gas, namely after the Russian weaponization. So the only way for Europe to get out of this crisis over the next months in a sustainable manner is to fix this imbalance, which you do by lowering your demand and maximize the supply. Alternatives, which means building the floating storage and regasification units as Germany is doing, which means signing new gas deals with LNG suppliers, promoting solar energy to get rid of gas in electricity production, promote the rollout of heat pumps in our houses, so to get rid of the gas boiler. These are the only structural solutions to the energy crisis in Europe.